are startup founders yourself. So I've kind of catered what I wanted to share based on to focus on audience of startup founders. Should we start?
Yeah.
Okay. So quickly about myself. So I'm actually really pleasantly surprised that so many of you already know about Coffee Meets Bagel because this is actually my first time visiting Singapore, and we've actually never promoted Coffee Meets Bagel in Singapore. And so everything that has happened, all the sign-ups and stuff, has been purely organic, which is why I'm so impressed that so many of you know about Coffee Meets Bagel. Quickly, my background, I'm originally from Korea. I moved to the US when I was in high school with my two sisters, who are also the co-founders of my co-founders of Coffee Meets Bagel. And I was one of those kids who didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I ended up studying psychology at University of Pennsylvania, and then kind of did all kinds of random jobs after college. I first started my career at Avon, which is now I think it's a pretty small brand, but at the time in 2004 when I graduated from college, it was still one of the 10 largest cosmetic brands in the world. So I worked in their strategy group for 3 years in New York City. Then I wanted to change my career and do something into international development space, particularly around microfinance. And so I decided to get my MBA at Stanford. Then some of my classmates at Stanford advised me that I should get private finance experience before moving on to public sector because you get to learn things a lot faster. So then I decided to work for JP Morgan and spent about 3 years in Hong Kong. So all that to say is that I've kind of been all over the place. And I wanted to share this as a case study because I think particularly in Silicon Valley, where we hear so many stories of, tech or computer science majors who drop out of college in their hoodies, that's kind of typically the picture that we have, or I had, as who can actually start a company. But I think really, my story and a lot of people who actually don't fit into the traditional mold, what that tells you is that there's really no set path to an entrepreneurship. I think at any age, at any background, you can choose to be an entrepreneur if you have a problem that you feel passionate about solving. Okay, so what is Coffee Meets Bagel? I describe Coffee Meets Bagel as the best dating app for real dates and real relationships. I think one of the questions that was asked on Facebook group is that what is the one success metric that we use internally to track our success? And it's basically the number of dates per users per week that we get to send through Coffee Meets Bagel. Our target number is we want to send all of our members at least one date, one quality date per week. And in order for that to happen, what we aim to do is generate at least 3 to 4 high quality connections in our app per users per week. And that is our ultimate level of success. So when I share this, a lot of first-time startup, a lot of startup founders ask me, why did you start something in the dating space, and why did you choose to particularly focus on relationship? I think dating space is a very interesting, it's a very interesting time for the dating category. When I first started thinking about what business I wanted to work on, dating just came up again and again among our group of friends who are singles, who was having a hard time meeting new people, new interesting people. And I think it's largely because of the change in lifestyle that not just in the US, but globally young people are facing. This is a graph of the percentage of singles among adults 18 years of plus population in the US, and the blue size of the pie is the percentage of married people who are adults. The peach color is percentage of singles. 2014 actually was the first year ever in US history where there were more single adults in the US than married. And actually this phenomenon is happening everywhere globally. This generation is undergoing a fundamental shift in lifestyle. We're just super focused on our career and our self-development. We tend to leave marriage and dating to something that we don't prioritize until very much later. even in Singapore, I looked up the average marriage age here, and it's 30 for men and actually 28 for women, which is, pretty. I think even just a couple years ago, I'm sure that number was very different, and I think it's rapidly changing Singapore and everywhere else in the world. So what this means is that the need for a service like Coffee Meets Bagel or any other dating app is really growing. Because people are becoming perpetual singles. We get married later, and unfortunately, we also get divorced more. so we were excited by this potential of singles who might need who might need a service like Coffee Meets Bagel more and more. So that is kind of why we chose dating apps. So why dating app that's focused on relationship? The way my sisters and I saw the dating space is in this 2x2 metrics. So in the horizontal bar, you have positioning of a dating app. In one extreme, there is dating app or social, more like a social networking app that is really for fun entertainment. You just browse a lot. And on the very other side, there is relationship-focused app. I think the ultimate kind of representation of that is eHarmony. Like a lot of people just use eHarmony. I don't know about here, but in the U.S., just to get married. So the different dating apps have different positioning, and everyone kind of runs where your place can vary. And then on the vertical bar, there is the friction of how hard it is for you to join or how hard it is for you to actually use the service. So the low friction is the completely free to use, like you just need to sign up, kind of the lowest as low you can get. And then the high friction is typically the subscription model where you have to pay upwards of like $60 a month to actually even use the service. It's interesting though that even today, most of the revenue in the dating category actually comes from the left, or I guess the right bottom quadrant of relationship-focused high friction. And the reason is because, of course, people who want relationship are more willing to pay for the service. I think with the Tinder monetization, things are starting to change, but still, majority of the dollars are generated by that quadrant. A lot of millennial dating apps that we've seen pop up in the last couple of years are focused on the entertainment / low friction category. Where we really wanted to focus on is the low friction, but still focused on relationship and going on real dates. And interestingly enough, that a lot of women actually fall into this category. Typically, of course, there are always exceptions, but generally speaking, a lot of women tend to look for real dates and real relationship versus hookups or just casual fun, let's browse. And so a lot of women actually belong to this space. And what we noticed is that there are not that many competitors, in fact, like none whatsoever when we started, that actually play into this service. And we saw that as a huge opportunity, and we also saw that as a huge opportunity to fix a lot of problems that is prevalent in dating. Dating category actually is known as the sausage fest because we've always had problem recruiting and retaining women. The gender ratio, I think this is US centric, but I think it's pretty similar globally. The gender ratio in the category among the dating app users have always been about 65% men and 35% women, which is quite imbalanced but not extreme. However, if you take into consideration the activity level of men and women, where men are actually typically twice as active on a dating app than ladies. And so then we already have more men using the app who are also doubly active. And so then if you think about the active user base, the gender ratio is even more lopsided, right? And when that happens, it is a frustrating experience for both men and women. Guys are frustrated because they put in a lot of work, but they don't hear back. And then women are also frustrated because they're typically overwhelmed with so much attention. And so by attracting more women to use and enter the dating app category, we wanted to, one, increase the size of the pie, and also two, provide optimal experience for both men and women. So that was the kind of the thesis behind Coffee Meets Bagel. So where we are right now, we launched back in April 2012. We last year completed Series A funding of $8 million. We are majority still in the US. I would say 90% of our users are in the US, but we have started expanding internationally. So we've made 2.5 billion introductions to date globally, and 112 million chats initiated by CMB singles. And like I said, we are very much focused on making sure that we send people on dates, and we also ultimately want people to be in a relationship. So we try to track as much as we can how many couples are generated by Coffee Meets Bagel, and so far we know at least 50,000 couples who have actually told us that they're in a relationship or engaged or married through our app, which is great. In Singapore, we actually haven't done much of like a marketing or localization whatsoever. I was sharing with the NUS group before the presentation that we take a very experimental approach to everything that we do, and international expansion was one of them. And so what we decided to do when we wanted to, look for some markets to enter, we said, hey, we're going to select about maybe 4 or 5 cities where we're going to launch and put in some effort behind it. I'm going to go there and market, and then see kind of what happens. And then we're going to also pick about 4 to 5 cities where we're just going to open and not do anything. And Singapore actually was one of them. And nothing really happened for a while, but what I did start noticing that for Singapore, more than any other 4 or 5 cities in that category, we started seeing like a good, healthy level of traction and engagement. And so then I wanted to actually come out here to learn more about the Singapore dating market. Also, share the messaging of Coffee Meets Bagel and what it really is about. And so that's actually why I made a trip out to Singapore. So even though we haven't done much, so far we have actually made about 2.5 million introductions for the Singaporean singles on CMB. About 2.2 million chats have been exchanged on our app. They seem very chatty. And there's about 5,000 connections every week happening on Coffee Meets Bagel app in Singapore. And I'm sure we are overrepresented in certain segments than others, because typically the way we launch our service is that we leverage our existing users in the US to kind of tell their friends about Coffee Meets Bagel. And so I'm guessing a lot of CMB users right now in Singapore are in the expat community or people who have studied abroad. But so hopefully I'll get to learn more about what the dating industry or what the singles care about, so we can continue to grow in Singapore. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Najee, for sharing. It's really, really impressive numbers that she has achieved so far, even in Singapore. Like, she wasn't even here for very long, and it was just organic growth. So before further ado, just wondering, anybody in the crowd has any questions for her based on what she shared? Okay, that's many. Maybe you can introduce yourself first, and question, do you use Coffee Meets Bagel?
Okay, so I'm CK. I'm also in the dating industry, dating app called Lunch Click. And of course, I'm using Coffee Meets Bagel, so we're actually very impressed with how you guys...
Are you using it for real, or like is it a
I'm using it for real. But we're in fact, my team, we're all really impressed with what you guys have done.
Oh, thank you.
Before we started the company, we have learned a lot from Coffee Meets Bagels, Idiom, and Tinder. So yeah, it's very impressive to see that what you have achieved today, and really glad that you're here to share. So, okay, based on what you have learned so far, like in Singapore, what do you think caused this effect? Like, you have not done any marketing at all.
Yeah.
What happened? How do you get so many users in Singapore?
Well,
so many activities?
So I think it kind of boils down to this, and even I just got here yesterday, and I started speaking to some people about their dating experience using Coffee Meets Bagel and other dating apps, and the general impression that I got so far is that Coffee Meets Bagel is, even in Singapore, known as the dating service for relationship among both men and women. And I think part of the reason why it's gaining so much traction is that, one, there isn't that many apps. I might be mistaken, because I'm not that familiar with the local dating scene here, but maybe there isn't that many dating apps that's really focused truly on delivering on relationship, and there is a unmet need among Singapore singles, because what they really want is a real relationship. I think that's the segment that we appeal to the most, even in the US and here as well.
Interesting. So, do you put in a lot of effort in App Store optimization and so on when you guys in the US and somehow the result get I mean, somehow you get the benefits in Singapore market as well?
Yeah, I don't think so. I've done a lot of experiments on ASO, App Store optimization. For those of you who are not familiar with App Store optimization, it's basically experimenting with different keywords, descriptions, so that you could actually rank higher when somebody searches for keywords like dating. Honestly, the way I see it, it hasn't really. That's my calendar. It hasn't really made a ton of difference. Maybe like couple hundred a day, but it's not really like, yeah. I mean, I really truly am a believer, and this may sound kind of like, oh, it's such a cop-out obvious answer, but I really think there are only, for consumer brand, there are only so many ways you can grow sustainably. You either make your paid acquisition viral, the paid acquisition will work because you're able to monetize on your user base, and the lifetime value that they're generating on your app is higher than customer acquisition cost. Or so that you can actually afford to spend a lot of money acquiring users, and you just continue doing that all day because the unit economics work for you. Or it's virality, what I call virality, which is word of mouth growth. And so your product is so awesome that people talk about it, and they tell their friends, and that kind of continues. And in order for that to happen, you need a clearly product market fit, right? I have a bunch of files open on my computer, so I'm kind of scared that something's going to show up here.
It should be because the last one's extremely confidential. So you may want to.
Yeah, you want to navigate it first before the Actually, we can just switch it off.
Yeah.
So
So those two are the only really pretty much way you can grow as a consumer company. And there's SEO too, but I think when it comes to dating,